It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. A golden key and a black eye. Elon Musk formally leaves Donald Trump's White House after a bruising 4 months.
I look forward to continuing to be a friend and advisor to the president, continuing to support the Doge team.
Also tonight, at least 117 people killed, and fears that number will rise after flash flooding in central Nigeria. The Liverpool parade suspect is remanded in custody on charges including grievous bodily harm and wounding with intent. Former Sinn Féin leader Gerry Adams wins damages from the BBC after being falsely accused of sanctioning the murder of a British agent. The government sells its remaining shares in NatWest 17 years on from its bailout at the height of the financial crisis. Plus, a new era. Taylor Swift buys up her back catalogue, the subject of a bitter dispute. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. It was the unlikely bromance at the heart of the U.S. government. But tonight, Elon Musk left Donald Trump's White House after 4 turbulent months. In that time, the world's richest person has taken an axe to federal budgets with mixed success. But speaking alongside the president this evening, he doubled down on claims that his Department of Government Efficiency could save the U.S. $1 trillion. And President Trump said he's not really leaving. It was a typically unconventional occasion in the Oval Office, Donald Trump holding court with invited members of the media and the tech billionaire sporting a black eye, courtesy, he said, of his young son. Our U.S. correspondent Mark Stone reports.
And it's an honor to be with Elon, who's my friend, and he's done a fantastic job.
There were some who said the relationship wouldn't last 5 minutes. Others who suspected he'd never leave the trappings of power. Neither was right.
But Elon's service to America has been without comparison in modern history.
In the end, the unlikely alliance with far-reaching implications came to an end just as his 130-day limit was up.
My time as a special government employee necessarily had to end. It was a limited time thing.
And the news conference, to the extent that it was one, was a moment for the two men to trumpet Musk's success.
Elon has worked tirelessly helping lead the most sweeping and consequential government reform program in generations. Take over, Elon, just take over.
But while there is no question that in his own style he upended the workings of federal government, slashing thousands of jobs, shutting whole departments, changing America's global footprint.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
And apparently enjoying it as he did.
Chainsaw!
The savings, well, they haven't quite matched the promise.
Well, I think we can do at least $2 trillion.
Yeah!
In the end, the savings to date, notwithstanding the massive job losses, are a fraction of what he had hoped. But it will take time, he says.
The Doge influence will only go stronger. It's, I'd liken it to sort of Buddhism. It's like a way of life. So it is permeating throughout the government, and I'm confident that over time we'll see $1 trillion of savings and a reduction in $1 trillion of waste and fraud reduction. Thank you.
The parting gift from president to the world's richest man, a key. It wasn't clear why. Maybe a key to the White House, because he'll be back and forth, we're told.
I expect to continue to provide advice whenever the president would like advice.
I hope so.
We did eventually find out why the black eye.
Yeah, no, I was just horsing around with Lil X, and I said, go ahead, punch me in the face, and he did. Turns out even a 5-year-old punching you in the face actually does.
That was X that did?
Yeah.
There was no probing on the New York Times reporting of Musk's alleged extensive drug use during the campaign. There is little doubt about the need to cut American bureaucracy or cut the debt, but it was his sledgehammer methods. His style was a distraction from the substance of Trump's sweeping policy changes. But the flamboyant wingman has gone. The president is flying solo now.
And Mark joins us live now from Washington, D.C. Mark, unsurprisingly, a pretty unconventional meeting there at the Oval Office between the two men.
Yeah, unconventional, just as we expected. You know, Donald Trump had trumpeted this as a news conference. It wasn't. And in fact, the small number of journalists that were in the Oval Office asking the questions, as it turned out, were from pretty compliant news outlets. The White House now chooses who gets to be on the pool rota to be allowed into the Oval Office. And it was perhaps convenient that on this day, there were very few probing questions about any of the extraordinary cuts that Elon Musk has presided over whatever it is, 130 days. There were a few questions about President Biden as well, Trump's predecessor, and about his mental acuity. There's been an awful lot of reporting over the course of the past few weeks, a book as well, suggesting that many within Biden's White House knew that he was not up to the job, but either because they were enacting a cover-up or because they simply did not want Trump to win, they backed Biden. They hid what was clearly a problem for him. Trump was asked about that. He didn't really go into much detail, but we did see President Biden for the first time today since the diagnosis that he is suffering from cancer, and he was asked about his mental acuity.
There's also been a lot of discussion recently about your mental and physical capabilities while you were in office.
You can see that. I'm mentally incompetent, and I can't walk, and I could beat the hell out of both of them.
So a sense of sarcasm there from President Biden. He also said he has absolutely no regrets, but it is quite clear now that those around him, and I was talking for our podcast on Monday to a key figure within the Biden administration, you know, they all admit now that they didn't believe he was the right man for the job, that actually there should have been a primary among the Democrats. They should have chosen a different candidate, not Kamala Harris. A lot of regret there, but from Biden himself, no regret at all.
And Mark, during that meeting in the Oval Office, obviously a lot of other issues were talked about, various conflicts around the world, President Trump reiterating his desire for peace. But when it comes to the Middle East, we've had details come out of the region that show that any kind of ceasefire or peace is still very far away.
Well, I don't know, to be honest. I mean, yeah, you're right. We've heard this so many times before, but it is the case. And sources I'm talking to do believe that we are at a really crucial point now where, and Trump said it himself in the Oval Office in what was, frankly, the only real bit of news from that news conference, to the extent that it was, he said, watch this space over the next day or two. We know that a proposal that was sent first from Hamas to the Israelis and the Americans has now been sent back to Hamas with a few changes. I think it is the case that Hamas is now under huge pressure to accept this latest proposal that would bring about a ceasefire. But within the last hour or so, news from Israel that they are blocking a proposed visit by the foreign ministers of some key Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Jordan, Qatar and Turkey. Foreign ministers were due to go to Ramallah to talk to the Palestinian Authority, such a key part in the process for the day after in Gaza. Well, Israel is blocking that trip now. So I guess because they want to talk about the formation of a Palestinian state. So many challenges still over the course of the days ahead. But I do think we should watch for whatever Hamas responds to this latest proposal. But as I say, you know, we have been here many times before.
Our U.S. correspondent Mark Stone with the latest there from Washington, D.C. Mark, thank you. Well, speaking of the conflict between Israel and Hamas, Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, has told Sky News that there is no widespread starvation in Gaza. A number of aid agencies say people across the territory are dying from lack of food and other basics, and the UN is warning of the very real risk of famine.
Gaza is the hungriest place on earth. And the aid operation that we have ready to roll is being put in an operational straitjacket that makes it one of the most obstructed aid operations, not only in the world today, but in recent history.
Well, my colleague Simon Mosen put those claims to Israel's UN ambassador a little earlier.
The only starvation in Gaza is the starvation of the hostages. So you're denying that there are hungry children, babies dying. These are the accounts of British, American doctors, Israeli human rights groups, people who are in touch. Multiple times I've interviewed people on the ground working there. So you're denying the accounts of hundreds of doctors.
You know, I listened to Mr. Tom Fletcher from the UN claiming that 14,000 Palestinian babies will die within 48 hours. Then he had to retract his words and apologize and acknowledge that it was not true. Aid is coming into Gaza today through two mechanisms, through trucks and through the US new initiative, which distributed 2 million meals in the last few days.
At least 117 people have died in heavy flooding in Nigeria. The market town Mokwa was submerged, with rescue workers saying 3,000 houses are now underwater. Sky's Ashna Hurinag has more details.
This thick torrent is tearing through this market town in central Nigeria. It is unrelenting and unforgiving. This was Mokwa's main road. Hundreds now watch as homes and businesses either side of it are submerged by sludge, carrying with it oil containers weighing tons and washing away dozens of homes and livelihoods. Hours of rain on Thursday and the collapse of a dam in a nearby town sent water surging through the street overnight when many were still asleep.
It usually is full of people, as you can imagine. This is the north-central area in Nigeria, so it usually connects, sort of, if you want, between the north and the south, and so a lot of trade goes through this area. Flooding is not uncommon in Nigeria, but usually it does not lead to significant loss of life because it is sort of an annual event. So this thing has caught us by surprise a little bit.
It's feared the number of people dead will rise as recovery teams still search for bodies among the flattened homes. The now ruined railway line has left this town effectively cut off. Seasonal floods are common, but this is devastation this town hasn't seen for more than 60 years. Nigeria's rainy season is just getting started. Ashna Hurinag, Sky News.
The man charged over the Liverpool parade incident has been remanded in custody. 53-year-old Paul Doyle is accused of 7 offences, including causing grievous bodily harm. Our North of England correspondent, Katerina Vitozzi, reports, and a warning that her report does contain distressing images of the incident.
We've seen him in photographs, but this was the first time in person. Taken to court in a prison van, Paul Doyle appeared wearing a suit and flanked by custody officers. He looked to be holding back tears as the charges against him were read out of causing grievous bodily harm, malicious wounding and dangerous driving.
The 53-year-old faces 7 charges relating to 6 people in all, 2 men, 2 women and 2 children aged 11 and 17 who we can't name for legal reasons.
The Crown Prosecution Service has said they will continue to review those charges against Paul Doyle as the police investigation continues into the moment a Ford Galaxy car crashed into crowds at the end of Liverpool Football Club's victory parade. 79 people needed hospital treatment. Paul Doyle remains in police custody for now, a trial date set for later this year. Katerina Vitozzi, Sky News, Liverpool.
Former Sinn Féin leader Gerry Adams has been awarded £84,000 in damages after winning his defamation case against the BBC. He brought the claim over a programme that alleged he sanctioned the murder of a British informant. Mr. Adams denies any involvement in the killing and described the programme as an attempted hatchet job. The BBC says the implications of today's verdict are profound. Our Ireland correspondent Stephen Murphy reports.
After 9 years and a 5-week trial, this was a moment of vindication for Gerry Adams. He left the High Court in Dublin after winning his defamation case against the BBC.
From my perspective, taking this case was about putting manners on the British Broadcasting Corporation. I know many, many journalists, and I would uphold your right to do your job. But the British Broadcasting Corporation upholds the ethos of the British state in Ireland. And in my view, it's out of sync on many, many fronts with the Good Friday Agreement.
Pictured with Adams, this is Dennis Donaldson, for years a leading Sinn Féin figure at Stormont. He was shot dead at a remote cottage in County Donegal in 2006, just months after he admitted he had been a spy for British intelligence, an act of violence condemned by Gerry Adams at the time.
The people who carried out this killing are enemies of the peace process. They're against change. They're against the type of future which many of us have worked very, very hard to create. So clearly they're against the peace process.
In 2016, the BBC Northern Ireland Spotlight team, including journalist Jennifer O'Leary, reported allegations from an anonymous source that Gerry Adams had sanctioned the murder, a grievous smear, according to the former politician, who has always denied being a member of the IRA. Almost a decade later, a jury agreed with him, finding the Spotlight programme had defamed him. For the BBC, this was a bad day for journalism.
The implications of their decision, though, are profound. As our legal team made clear, if the BBC's case cannot be won under existing Irish defamation law, it's hard to see how anyone's could.
The jury awarded Gerry Adams €100,000 in damages, but the costs will run into the millions in what has been one of the most high-profile and expensive court cases in recent years in Ireland. Stephen Murphy, Sky News in Dublin.
The government has sold its remaining shares in NatWest, 17 years on from the bank's rescue during the financial crisis. It's thought to be the biggest state intervention in the private sector since the Second World War, and it's now being confirmed that the bailout cost the taxpayer £10.5 billion. Our business correspondent, Gurpreet Narwan, has been speaking to the chair of NatWest Group, Rick Haythornthwaite.
It's been 17 years since the government's £46 billion bailout of RBS. That was £46 billion that wasn't spent on schools, on hospitals. It was money that wasn't spent on the military, on playgrounds, on parks, on the arts. I'd like to start by asking you to reflect on that event and the consequences. Is there anything you would like to say to the public?
You know, as a recent arrivee at the bank, it's telling that people's reflections on this are reflective, and it's about a desire to express gratitude to the taxpayers. I mean, they not just rescued this bank, they protected millions of savers, of businesses and homeowners. And, you know, from the bank standpoint, it gave us the opportunity to completely restructure into a much safer, a stronger bank.
So 17 years on, you talked about change, but the Chancellor has been very vocal about the need to deregulate the city. She said, I think, that some of the post-2008 reforms have gone too far. Do you agree with her?
Well, we support the drive for growth. I think that's very necessary for the nation. But at the same time, and I think she recognises that we have very high quality regulation in the UK. We're not advocating deregulation, but this is an opportune moment to see whether we can bring greater clarity, whether we can eliminate some duplication, whether we can deal with some areas of unintended consequence. But this is not about triggering a race to the bottom.
But might it involve some watering down of the regulations that we saw post-2008?
Well, I think the regulator stepped in very necessarily 17 years ago and raised the standards it expects of banks, of their leaders, of people working in those places, made demands of the culture and made demands of its service to customers. All that is very right. Inevitably, you know, the pendulum can swing slightly too far, and one must question whether it swung slightly too far. But I use the word slightly.
The search for a girl missing in the River Thames near Gravesend has been suspended. The Coast Guard responded to a report of 2 children in difficulty near the town's Royal Terrace Pier this lunchtime. One of the children was rescued. Boats from the Met Police, Kent Police and the RNLI lifeboat were involved in the search, as well as a police helicopter. A prison officer has been seriously injured in a stabbing at HMP Long Lartin in Worcestershire. The 25-year-old officer was airlifted to hospital following the incident this morning. The inmate involved in the attack remains at the prison. The captain of the cargo ship that crashed into an oil tanker in the North Sea back in March has pleaded not guilty to manslaughter. Russian national Vladimir Motin was at the wheel of the Solong cargo vessel. 38-year-old Mark Angelo Pernia, a crew member on the Stena Immaculate tanker, is missing, presumed dead. A man caught trying to steal jewels worth £190,000 from Claridge's in Mayfair in London has been jailed. 37-year-old Jay McGinty, who used a hammer and smoke grenades, pleaded guilty to aggravated burglary. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Russell Brand has pleaded not guilty to rape, sexual assault and indecent assault. The broadcaster, comedian and actor appeared at Southwark Crown Court today to formally deny the charges for the first time. He'll now go on trial next year. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer reports.
Chest out, shoulders back. For Russell Brand, known for his rapid-fire speaking style, this second court appearance provided the chance at least for him to state plainly, albeit briefly, his intention to contest the charges he faces. As photographers sent back what they'd snapped, inside journalists listened as the comedian and podcaster was asked how he intended to plea.
To the charge that he raped a woman in 1999, he stood up and clearly said not guilty. To indecently assaulting a woman by trying to pull her into a toilet in 2001, he said the same. And to the charge that in 2004 he dragged a woman into a toilet and orally raped her, and that he sexually assaulted another woman at a radio station, possibly that same year, he spoke clearly, calmly. Not guilty to everything.
Brand's life nowadays has changed significantly from back when he was at the height of his fame. Now a doting father living in America, he has found God. While he might be projecting confidence and insisting on social media, he welcomes the chance to clear his name. The stakes here are high. A rape conviction carrying with it the maximum sentence of up to life in prison. And he'll have to wait until June next year before this even comes to court. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
Students graduating this week from Harvard, one of the world's leading universities, have done so against the backdrop of a bitter row with the White House. Donald Trump has tried to ban the college from bringing in foreign students, efforts that have been blocked by a federal judge. And graduates in Boston have told Sky News that without overseas students, Harvard wouldn't be Harvard. U.S. correspondent James Matthews reports.
Harvard wants to fight. They want to show how smart they are, and they're getting their ass kicked.
Graduation day at Harvard.
They said I couldn't do it!
America's oldest university. At war with its newest president.
Feather out! Great! Great!
It seems aggressive and misguided.
Harvard is, in a weird way, like the unlikely symbol of the resistance to Trump.
Harvard is fighting a government that wants a say in who and what it teaches.
Around the world, just as it should be.
The Trump administration wants a ban on enrolling foreign students. It's threatening to withhold billions in funding. Harvard is fighting it in court.
If we still believe in a shared future, let us not forget those who we label as enemies, they too are human.
The Trump administration says its motivation lies in campus anti-Semitism exposed in protests surrounding conflict in the Middle East. Harvard does acknowledge that as an issue and has taken steps to address it.
I mean, ultimately, it's to make it a campus of Trump University.
Staff and students at Harvard see a bigger picture and plan.
to disable it as a source of influence and voice and education, and ideally to stack it with people who are more congenial to his political views.
Beneath the Boston skyline, you can hear Harvard. And what academic success sounds like.
Right, it's just roll to the water. Roll to the
But the ripples run far beyond the institution on the banks of the Charles River. The Trump administration is tightening foreign access to its universities, for Chinese nationals in particular.
I think it's deeply, deeply dehumanizing.
We spoke to international students most vulnerable.
He's trying to crush us, but we have shown over the last couple of weeks that he won't do that easily.
International students bring a wealth of experience and culture to an environment. I think we bring diversity. I think we bring just color to, honestly, places like Harvard. And so I think it's really saddening that we're trying to take that away.
America's elite universities don't lean Trump. He will lose few votes in this fight. It is a conflict to shape US education. It's politics, but it's much more. James Matthews, Sky News at Harvard University.
Next tonight, the most northern settled land on Earth, bearing the brunt of climate change and rising geopolitical tension. Sky News joined Foreign Secretary David Lammy on a trip to Svalbard, which is 400 miles from the North Pole. And Mr. Lammy says the twin threats of the climate crisis and Russian malign activity in the Arctic must be taken seriously. Our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, reports.
It has for millennia been remote and above the squabbles of mankind. But at the top of the world, the climate is changing, and with it bringing renewed tension.
The Arctic is increasingly in the news, but not for the right reasons. So what is going on here, and why does it matter to us in the UK?
The furthest north settled land on Earth, Svalbard, is 400 miles from the North Pole. As it is across the Arctic, the sea is warming here. How fast is hard to measure. Technology is helping in a sci-fi landscape high above the sea.
This extraordinary place is the biggest satellite listening station on Earth. In each of these white domes there are antennae communicating with satellites in orbit, and part of the data they're sending back is giving us a clearer picture of the impact of climate change.
Somewhere that I would not have come.
Britain's Foreign Secretary David Lammy is here to monitor two threats that are interlinked: climate change and Russia.
This is a huge region, and we must take the geopolitics of this region and the changing nature of this region because of climate, the threats that we're seeing from Russia, deadly seriously.
With the Arctic opening up, Russia is increasingly assertive, accused of a range of malign activity in the region. NATO is responding, increasing its presence to counter the threat. In Iceland, the Foreign Secretary toured a NATO airbase, where air patrols have been stepped up, watching Russia's military and covert activity. David Lammy says what happens in the far north is important to us back home.
Arctic security is UK security. We do see Russia's shadow fleet using these waters. We do see increased activity from submarines with nuclear capability under our waters. And we do see hybrid sabotage of undersea cables at this time.
This is also about distracting Russia, drawing away resources that could have been used in the war in Ukraine and deterring it in future. Because the more the Arctic opens up, the more this once pristine wilderness is becoming the arena of national rivalry and potentially conflict. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Svalbard in the Arctic.
She once sang that "You Belong With Me," and that came true for Taylor Swift today as she celebrated buying back the rights to all of her music. The singer lost the rights to her first 6 albums in 2019, when her first record label sold them on. Her response? To re-record the albums one by one, and that's been credited with changing the way the music industry works. Sky's Jason Mansoray reports.
Welcome to the acoustic set.
Arguably the biggest star in the world. Not long off the highest grossing concert tour of all time. And now another success sees the reigning queen of pop bursting into tears of joy. Taylor Swift has bought back the rights to all her master recordings. Announcing the news on her official website, Swift said, "All the music I've ever made belongs to me, and all my music videos, all the concert films, the album art and photography, the unreleased songs, the memories, the magic, the madness, every single era, my entire life's work." The pop star had originally lost the rights to her first 6 albums in 2019, when her then record label, Big Machine, sold them to music executive Scooter Braun. At the time, Swift said she was not given the opportunity to buy her work. Braun subsequently sold his stake to Shamrock Holdings for a reported £222 million. In a savvy move, though, Swift set about re-recording and re-releasing 4 Taylor's Version albums.
I think Taylor Swift's in a unique position. She has been extremely savvy, effectively re-recording identical versions of her original tracks, thereby devaluing the rights that had been bought by the city people. But I don't think many artists would be capable of doing what she did, in that she's got such power over her fan base that she could go away and tell them to only listen to the new re-recorded versions and not the originals.
It's not known how much Swift paid Shamrock to reacquire the rights to her songs. What has been confirmed is that Taylor won't be re-recording the Reputation album. Good news coming with a cruel summer for fans who had been anticipating the album's re-release. Jason Mansoret, Sky News.
And well done her. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by The Guardian columnist Zoe Williams and PR consultant Alex Dean. Welcome both. And among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Times. The headline, Defence Pledge by Labour. We'll be right back.